Joseph Stalin, the iron-fisted ruler. On a cold night in December 1878, in the Georgian town of Gori, a child was born. His name was Iosif Vissarionovich Jugashvili, later known as Joseph Stalin. His childhood was harsh. His father, an alcoholic shoemaker, often beat him and his mother. Despite this, he was a bright student and received a scholarship to a seminary. Instead of becoming a priest, he was drawn to the works of Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin. Inspired by their ideas, he abandoned religion and turned to revolution. By the early 1900s, Stalin was involved in Bolshevik activities, organizing strikes and robberies to fund the revolution. After the Bolsheviks seized power in 1917, he became a close ally of Lenin. When Lenin died in 1924, Stalin's main rival was Leon Trotsky. Through political maneuvers, Stalin forced Trotsky into exile and later had him assassinated. Once in power, Stalin ruled with absolute authority, transforming the Soviet Union into a global superpower at a terrible cost, the Great Purge. By the 1930s, Stalin saw enemies everywhere. Between 1936 and 1938, he launched the Great Purge, in which thousands of military officers, intellectuals, and citizens were executed or sent to gulags, brutal labor camps in Siberia. Even a whispered complaint about Stalin could lead to arrest and execution. The famine and collectivization. Stalin ordered the collectivization of farms, forcing peasants to hand over their land to the state. Millions resisted, but he crushed them. The worst consequence was the Holodomor, a man-made famine in Ukraine, 1932 to 1933. Millions starved to death while the Soviet government continued exporting grain. World War II. In 1939, Stalin signed a non-aggression pact with Hitler. But in 1941, Hitler invaded the Soviet Union. At first, Stalin was caught off guard, but he quickly took control. The Battle of Stalingrad, 1942 to 1943, was a turning point. Stalin ordered his soldiers to fight to the last man. The Soviet victory cost millions of lives, but marked the beginning of Germany's defeat. After the war, Stalin expanded Soviet influence across Eastern Europe, setting the stage for the Cold War. By the early 1950s, Stalin had become increasingly suspicious of those around him. His inner circle feared him. In March 1953, he suffered a massive stroke at his home. His guards were too afraid to check on him for hours. By the time they did, it was too late. He died on March 5th, 1953. Millions mourned, but many secretly rejoiced. His rule had transformed the Soviet Union into a world power, but at the cost of tens of millions of lives. Stalin remains one of history's most controversial figures, remembered for both his achievements and his brutality.
Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please do like, share with friends, and please subscribe to the channel.